Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Stacy. Now today's video is definitely long overdue. It's just going to be I'm going to call it my summer wrap-up. So it's basically all the books I read this summer, starting with, I believe, May, and then all the way up to August. It's not a lot of books, but I think it's a good chunk for me considering how busy I've been this year. But anyways, let's get into it and I'll show you what books I've been reading. I just want to start off by saying that these books are in no particular order. So anyways, the first one I want to talk about is called The Giver, and this is by Lois Lowry. Now I did read this book on Overdrive, so I don't have a physical copy to show you, but I'll, stick a picture there. So in this book, we follow our main character, Jonas. And Jonas lives in a world where there's no music, there's no color, and there's no pain, amongst other things too. But anyways, one day he is actually chosen to be the receiver. And as the receiver, he now holds all the memories. And these memories are given to him by the giver. So once he starts receiving all these memories, he starts to learn about color and pain. And as he goes through this journey, he starts to realize that the society that he's living in isn't really as great as he thinks it is. I want to start off by saying I absolutely love this book. It had me right from the very beginning. It had me pulled in, had me intrigued, very hard to put down. But the other thing I really loved about this book is that it really made you think. Sure, living in a world where there's no pain would be a great thing. I'm sure we would love to have that. But having to give up things like music and living in a society where you're controlled and you're basically told you can't have any feelings, you can't have any emotions. I mean, that isn't so great. So that being said, does the bad outweigh the good, or does the good outweigh the bad? I don't know, just something to think about, I guess. It's a book that I still think about often. I totally understand why so many schools are having their students read this. I think it's one of those books that would be great to just sit down with a group of people and just discuss the book and your thoughts and your feelings. And the only issue I seem to have with this book is that it ended so abruptly, but I honestly did not let that affect my star rating, and I ended up giving this book 5 stars. It's actually a book that I'm going to go out and buy a physical copy of. I think it would be a great addition to the books I already have. And I have just recently learned that they are turning this book into a graphic novel. I just stumbled across it on the internet, which I thought was pretty neat. And I believe it's released sometime in March of 2019. I'll post a picture there so you can see what the cover looks like. But anyways, if you're interested in graphic novels or The Giver, definitely check that out. The next book I'd like to talk about is called 3 Dark Crowns. And this book is about a set of triplets who they each have equal rights to the crown. When they are young, they're actually separated from each other. And they each go live on separate areas of the island. And when they turn 16, they are reunited, where they will have to battle each other to the death. And the last one standing gets the crown. Now, several times in this book, I actually considered DNFing it. It's a very slow-moving book in the very, I'm going to say, 3/4 of the book. I did find that there seemed to be a lot of information, characters, and whatnot to have to remember. I don't know if it's because I'm just getting old and my memory's failing me, but I did find that was an issue for me. Now, I have heard a lot of reviews that, people say that it is very slow moving, but to keep going, that it gets better at the end, and they weren't lying. Once you get to the last quarter of this book, it is very fast-paced. There's plot twists that you don't see coming, well, at least I didn't see coming. I was shocked by the ending, and I'm happy I stuck with it and finished it. Now, I did end up giving this book 3.5 stars, and that's just simply because slow pace in the beginning, and I would definitely continue on with the series. This book ends on a cliffhanger and I just have to know what happens next. Okay, the next book I'd like to talk about is called The Girl with All the Gifts. And in this book we follow our main character Melanie, and she's actually a young girl who is being locked up in this military building. Each morning her and the other children who are also in the building with her are collected from their prison cells. They are held at gunpoint and then they are strapped into these chairs, wheelchairs, and from there they are taken into classrooms where they are taught. And the only thing that Melanie knows about the outside world is that it's a very dangerous place and it's unsafe. Now, I think this book was perfect for me because I am a huge fan of The Walking Dead. If you like The Walking Dead, chances are you're going to like this book. It's same kind of concept, same idea. It's a book that definitely reads like a thriller, and it had me hooked right from the very beginning. It's definitely a unique story, one that I don't think I've probably read before. Now, I have been told that there's also a movie, so I'm really hoping to watch that too. As you know, I'm a huge fan of watching movie adaptations. I like to compare the book and the movie, so I'm definitely going to check that out. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is The Daughter of the Pirate King. Now this book obviously is about the daughter of a pirate king, but anyway, she purposely gets captured by the enemy. She's on the hunt to find a treasure map. Now I really enjoyed this book. It was an easy read, it was fun, it was entertaining. I absolutely adored the main character. She's fiery and sassy and pretty much everything I want to be. Now there's also a twist at the end of this book that I didn't see coming. I know I've talked to other people or I've heard other reviews and people said it was predictable. Not for this girl. I did not see it coming whatsoever, which obviously makes the book that much better. I definitely can't wait to pick up the second book. So I obviously ended up giving this book 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is called When Jack. Now I believe I also got this book from, what's it called? Overdrive. Hopefully I can make it through this description of this book without crying. Definitely a hard hitter. Now this story is about a boy by the name of Charlie, and he's running away from a Northern Ontario Indian school. And this boy has actually been separated from his family and put into this school. So he's just trying to get back to his family. Little does he know how far away his family actually is. And so his journey back is a very difficult one. And he is met with different spirits along the way. They just offer him some comfort in this journey. I want to start off by saying this book is just beautifully written, but it broke me. This book is actually classified as fiction, but Charlie is actually a real person who was separated from his family. I know, that's horrible. Taken to this school. I believe it was in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And at the school, he goes through a lot of bullying and abuse. It's just not a good situation. So that aspect of the book is true. He's a real person. This did happen. But the reason I know he's a real person and that journey is actually true is that I have this book, which is called 7 Fallen Feathers, which they talk about him. They talk about him in this book. This book is nonfiction. And this book is about the Indigenous people here in Canada, Ontario, and just the racism and just how the Indigenous people were treated. So if anybody's watching right now and you want to read When Jack, you should read this too, because I haven't read it yet. No, I haven't read it yet, but I have a feeling this one is going to go... When Jack is just the starting point. This book is going to go into more people, it's going to go into more depth, and it's going to be a hard read. I have to say, reading this book, I was furious. It upset me, it pissed me off. I'm trying not to cry right now. And as much as it made me infuriated, it was beautifully written. And for that reason, I gave it 5 stars. So the next book I want to talk about is called The Breadwinner. And I also got this book from Overdrive. Now, this book takes place in Afghanistan, where an 11-year-old girl has to dress as a boy in order to make money for her family in order to survive. This is a very powerful and moving story. Reading it, I got the impression that the author definitely knows the area. She knows what she's talking about. And then I did a little bit more research. Now, this book is fiction, but the author has based a lot of the book on true life stories from Afghan women in the refugee camps. I think knowing that kind of makes the story that much more heartbreaking, because there's actually a lot of truth in this book. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. And another book I read over the summer is called The Chalk Man. In 1986, we follow 12-year-old Eddie and a group of his friends, and they've created this game. It's a secret game, and basically they draw little chalk men, and they use these chalk men to kind of communicate with each other. And then one day, these chalk men actually lead them to a dead body. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything more about this book, simply because it's a thriller. You need to go into a thriller not knowing anything, or as little as possible. That way you get the best enjoyment out of the book. Now, I want to say this book actually gave me Stephen King vibes. Not so much in the writing style, but it kind of reminded me of the group of boys from Stand By Me, the movie, or the book The Body. But yeah, definitely, Stephen King vibes. Now, the one thing I liked about this book, and basically any book that's written like this always seems to have me hooked, but I like how it's told from 2 different timelines. One is in, obviously, 1986 when Eddie's 12, and the other timeline is actually when he's an adult. So then it just kind of goes back and forth between the 2. I love that style. Like I said, it gets me hooked every time. I definitely enjoyed this book. Definitely a page turner. Had me intrigued the whole entire time. I always had to just read one more chapter to find out what happened next. So yeah, that definitely made for a very quick and easy read. But I do want to say that it's a definite trigger warning for sexual abuse. There is a spot in the book that, in my opinion, he gets pretty graphic about it. My battery just died on my camera, so if the setting behind looks a little bit different or just a little bit off, that's why. I actually ended up giving this book 4 stars. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, just a tiny, teeny little book, and it's called I've Been Meaning to Tell You. And basically this is just a book on a father who writes a letter to his 13-year-old daughter, and in this letter it addresses the issue of racism and discrimination, and he's just talking about his own personal experiences, as well as his parents. I had a hard time reading this book. It's really hard to give a star rating to somebody who is voicing their experiences, especially in regards to racism. I did find that it just seemed to be lacking something. I'm not quite sure what. I don't know, there was just something missing. But with that being said, I can still appreciate the message that is being sent to the daughter. I'm a person who just doesn't understand how people cannot get past the color of somebody's skin. I don't get it. When are we as a society, as a world, going to get past the color of someone's skin? Racism needs to stop. It's as simple as that. It needs to stop. Okay, and next I have Evermore, and this is about a teenage girl who suffers a near-death experience after being in a car accident with her family. The rest of her family ends up dying, but she survives. And because of this near-death experience, she suddenly now has psychic abilities. I thought this book was pretty good. It didn't blow me away, but I did enjoy it enough to continue reading it. It definitely had me curious. I was interested to see how it was all going to play out. It's definitely a quick and easy read, fast-paced. I did hear some people compare it to the Twilight series. Don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that's pushing it a little too far. One thing that did really annoy me in this book is the constant mentioning of these red tulips. I feel like every single chapter had some sort of mention of red tulips. So in that aspect, I think maybe that part was a little overdone. I get that it's important to the story, but to be honest, I can't remember what I ended up rating this. Maybe 4 stars? Oh, let's go with 4 stars. I did enjoy the book enough that I actually picked up book 2, the next one in the series. Okay, and the last book I'm going to talk about today is actually a graphic novel, and that's called Through the Woods. Now this is a graphic novel that has 5 different stories in it. They are like mystery horror stories. When I first heard people talk about this book, they referred to it as being like really scary. Like they were scared reading it. No, you're pushing it too far. I definitely wouldn't say it was scary. Some of the stories were kind of creepy. Now I did find some of the stories seem to end too abruptly. I feel like you're just getting into it and then all of a sudden the story's done. But I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. Let's see how well I can explain this, but the author is, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just seen this for something it's not. But I almost feel like the author was trying to leave it open-ended for the reader then to, you can interpret it however they want. So I have a feeling that you could take a group of people who've read this. They will probably, each one of them will interpret the ending a totally different way. So in that aspect, I kind of like this book. Do find the graphics were absolutely beautiful. I give the books kudos for that. Let's see if I can just show you a few. Okay, so that is the end of all the books I read this summer. Not a lot, but you know, I've been busy, so I got hopefully only 2 more months of work, and then I'm basically off until April, May, so lots of reading time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm counting down the days. That's my goal right now. Get to the end of the work season, and then all I'm going to do is be lazy and read my books. So I'm just wondering, have any of you read these books? And if so, what are your thoughts and opinions on them? Do you agree or disagree with me? One book did you read this summer that you absolutely loved that, hey, maybe you would recommend to me? So anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It warms my heart when I see those thumbs ups. Thumbs ups? That doesn't sound right. Anyways, it warms my heart when I see them. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!